Hello, friends. My name is Joe Lynch. I'm the host of the Logistics of Logistics podcast. Normally, I'm doing these interviews from home, but today I am at Trimble Insight in Las Vegas. And today's topic is improving the truck driver experience with my friend JS Bouchard. How's it going, JS?
Very good, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We had a nice conversation. We should have recorded that, but I look forward to learning more about you and your company. So please introduce yourself and your company and where you guys are located.
Yeah. So my name is JS Bouchard. I'm with Isaac, computer engineer. Been with the company for 22 years, one of the co-founders. Our headquarters are in Montreal, Canada. We have headquarters in the US, in Cleveland, Ohio. We've been in the trucking space for specifically selling to trucking companies since 2014. And we've been growing since into that space.
So anytime somebody is based in Montreal, I have to ask, of course, you work with US and Canadian companies, right?
Yes, exactly.
I want to make sure no one checks out and goes, no, we don't work with Canada. I've never talked to a tech company that doesn't work with both US and Canada. Yeah. How are you guys connected to Trimble? Because we're at this Trimble Insight conference.
Yeah.
How are you guys involved with this?
Yeah, so Trimble is a very important partner for Isaac, and that's why we're here. Isaac, at the core, we help with the in-cab solution. So we provide the driver with a tablet that's going to tell them where to go do the pickup, the delivery, how to navigate there. So all this information that we provide the driver to tell what to do comes from the Trimble products, whether it's TruckMate, TMW Suite, ICC Innovative. That's where the companies and the carriers are preparing those loads, planning those trips. Those trips are sent down to Isaac. We, with the workflow and the driver experience that we generate, we tell the driver what to go do, pick up, deliver. That information feeds back into the Trimble products so that it gets updated automatically. So on the back end, they can update their shippers at the same time.
Yep. And this whole conference is filled with Trimble partners and I guess competition too. And that's the interesting thing about tech is sometimes you're partnering with somebody and sometimes you're also competing with them in another business. But it's amazing how many companies are here. Trimble, I think I learned yesterday, 100 acquisitions and a whole bunch of companies that they also divested from over time. And so I thought, you don't do 100 acquisitions unless you're really good at it. You also don't have hundreds of partners unless you're good at that. So what value do you get from being a Trimble partner and what are they getting from being a partner with your company?
So when we meet carriers, like our goal is, and they're not using Isaac, our goal is to see how we can help them better use their back office software. What can we change in the truck that's going to make the back office software, like namely the dispatch software, work better? So we come here really to understand how we can make things better, how we can work better with them. We come here, of course, to meet carriers, whether they're our customers, to see how they're using it today, what they could do better, or people not using Isaac and see how they could eventually possibly use us and how we could help them solve some of the issues that are top of mind for them.
And what are they getting from their relationship with you?
So whether you mean what Trimble is getting from the relationship with us.
They wouldn't invite you here otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. Trimble, we're the extent of their product in-cab, right? So the customers that use both our products, they want those solutions to work really well together so that we hit the problems that they're facing every day and solve them.
Yeah, I've done a lot of interviews this week already with Trimble executives. I'm still going to talk to some more. And one theme that keeps coming out, first up, obviously the partnerships, but also I keep hearing the term integrated and connected. And I know we've been using the term ecosystem for a long time, but it feels like now it is more of an ecosystem in a real sense that there's connection. And I'm probably misstating this, but I look at my phone. All the apps that I download on my phone all work. We know they work. Otherwise, I couldn't download it onto my phone. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. I could download something onto my phone and it wouldn't work. So how has that changed?
So integration is you mentioned the word integration. It's a key component. Like when you buy pieces of software as a business, you want it to integrate with the rest of the solutions that you're using.
Right.
Like disconnected software means people need to transfer the information from one point to the other. If you're looking for efficiencies, integration so that the data flows automatically is key. So integration is so important for us that our team in Cleveland essentially is an integration team. That's the core of what they're doing, so that we make sure that our customers, our partners, can have the best integration possible with the other softwares that they're using in their office. So our component is really the in-cab component, providing the driver experience. But we rely heavily on what's in the back office to really operate and provide the driver. We're really that extension of the back office software in front of the driver. That's how you got to see it. So the integration is essential to make all these things work. And it's not just a one-way integration. It's all together. You're talking about apps on your phone. Think about a driver. Omniapps.
Now you reminded me. I got to make sure my phone is actually off. It is.
Okay, perfect. And we have multiple apps on our phone. When you want a driver to navigate through this, how can you improve his experience? How many username, how many passwords do I need to remember? How many apps do I need to use to get the job done? Oh, I went to that customer. I forgot to use that app. Like, I forgot to enter the information. They get to work with different shippers day in, day out, do different pickups, different deliveries. How do you make that experience for the driver easy to use and easy to remember that I haven't forgotten?
Right. Before I forget, I was at your booth the other day and I saw Neil. I saw you also. And I remember Neil said, you had your tablet there. I remember Neil said to me, this is the in-cab tablet. And he said, JS loves to drop it on the floor during presentations. And he said, because it's that rough and tough. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But that is the more to the experience of a driver. If you're in a truck and by chance it drops, you can't have all of your business go away because you have a very fragile device.
You got it. We have the driver that's going to use the tablet to do his work. That tablet is where he's going to do his e-logs. If he doesn't have e-logs, what happens? I need to park the truck until I find a solution. If I don't find a solution, I need to go to paper logs. Paper logs brings other issues to the business, which I'm not going to get into. We're the core element to tell the driver where to go pick up, deliver, how to navigate there. If I don't have that, I'm back on my phone talking with my dispatcher to know and update him on everything I do. So when you think about these concepts, how important is the survival of that device throughout the day? Now, that device, it's a tablet for a reason. I want to get electronic signatures. I want to take pictures of a defect, of a load, of an OSND or whatever. I'm going to
when there's damage or it's short, they want to take that picture.
They want to take that picture. So to document the process for the shipper, right? But I have a driver that day in, day out, comes in and out of the truck multiple times a day with the tablet in his hand. He's going to drop the tablet at some point, guaranteed. That's for sure. When that happens, what do you want to happen? I want him to keep going with his day. If I park the truck right now, wheels are not turning, business is not making any revenue from that asset that's parked right now, driver is not making money because he's paid by the mile. Just generates frustration with him, generates loss of revenue with the company. So that uptime of the in-cab solution is very important for us. So that's where we try to select components that will just make it work all the time. So I like to say, set and forget.
So I'm going to get very basic here for a minute because there's a lot of people who hear telematics. By the way, yesterday I interviewed Jack Kennedy from Platform Science. He says telematics doesn't explain it anymore. And then I said ELD, and I think somebody said ELD doesn't explain it anymore. So before we hit record, we were talking about what problem, if I got a brand new truck, I don't know anything about driving, and what problems do I have and what solutions do I need to keep me maximizing my income? And again, I get paid to drive.
So great question, Joe. I think like the number one problem the industry faces is the driver took a job to drive a truck, to move freight from point A to point B. But all the requirements coming from shippers, coming from inside the carrier for compliance reasons, they're asking the driver to document several things. Each keystroke on a tablet is one more keystroke the driver never wanted to do.
He's not driving.
How can we minimize all of that? It's all that process of documenting information. How can we reduce it? Just to give you an example, a customer was using a telematics solution where they had set up workflow. For every pick, the driver needed to do 35 screen clicks. They moved on to ISO. this workflow, the predictive workflow that we put in the hands of the driver, cut it down to 3. So think about the driver's day. I do a pickup. I go from 35 clicks on the tablet to complete my pickup to 3. How much more simple is that?
Yeah.
That's what, when we think of improving the Isaac solution, we think about efficiency. We think about how many clicks do you need to get it done? That's how we do it.
Yeah. So you're pulling information from where when you get that, when you're filling the Isaac
So
tablet?
we pick the information from mainly, and reason we're here, the dispatch software is one big source of information for. When a dispatcher says, okay, this is the trip, we're going to go pick up at that location, deliver at that location. This driver is going to do it with that truck and trailer. Boom, shows up on the tablet. The driver that's logged in that truck that morning on that tablet sees the trip he needs to complete, sees the pickup, sees the delivery location. And our goal and our objective is to guide the driver step by step. I like to say our goal is to tell the driver, here's your username and password. Go in the truck, follow the instructions on the tablet. You don't have to think. Just follow the instructions on the tablet. And the tablet is going to guide you and bring you from terminal to terminal so your day is done. Just follow those steps.
Nice. And we all have phones, and we're doing more and more on our phones, a little less on our computers.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I bought a software this week. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Vegas, and Google quickly said, "Oh, here's your credit card, here's your name." It's just boom. And I was like, I bought that. I downloaded an app and bought it, the premium version, in a minute.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you go, man, in the past that would have been like, I would have been
So
keying in my credit card, and I'd be frustrated. I have to go get my glasses.
Simple made you buy it.
Yeah. But now I have an expectation. And I always say, this is what's interesting about our lives now.
Yeah.
We used to all, if you're of a certain age, you've used an old clunky system with a green screen where you like, click F8 to go to the cost screen.
Yeah.
And
tap.
Yep. And yeah, exactly. Where you space over, and it's not at all intuitive. The user interface sucks, and you just put up with it. It's part of the job. But now we're exposed to what I always call consumer grade technology. We use Lyft, we use the Domino's app, whatever you're using, it is so elegant and so easy that when we get to work, we expect consumer grade technology and a consumer grade experience.
Yeah.
We won't put up with it. And especially as we're bringing in younger drivers, maybe the old guys just got used to it, but as we're trying to attract people to this business, the more we can make this an interesting business that lets them be on the open road and less entering information into an antiquated system, the better we're going to make this life for them.
And the more the driver keys in information, the more it's prone to error, the more it's prone to typos, the more can I remove any redundant steps that's in the process. And think about the driver that needs going to various shippers, going to various locations, having different steps every time. He needs to remember what I need to do here, what I need to do there. Not forget this, not forget that. We sometimes see customers, they have this long list of text that the driver needs to read, go through. Our goal is just to make it very simple for the driver. Hey, don't forget this, don't forget that. Do this, do that.
Right.
It's all in a sequence. And hey, you're done. You're ready to leave.
It's interesting, this journey we've been on with software. And I'll take this offline for a minute. So if you look at all of us who sit at desks, we use ERP systems. And they used to be a giant pain in the ass to implement, but we got them. And the reason we got them is because we realized that the mailing address for billing a customer was different than we were delivering to a customer. And so we had all this. If we had one system, it was like the sales guy said, no, it should be the sales information. The shipping guy said, so we ended up getting all of our information connected through this enterprise resource planning. And it seemed like a monstrosity sometimes in ERP. But what it does when it's clicking, you don't have to do much. I don't have to say, hey, I pulled this up, this customer. I know the shipping address. I know where the sales guy is based. I know where the ops team is. I know all the phone numbers, the email. It's just boom, boom, boom. And now we're bringing that similar tech stack to the driver, dispatch, and the shippers.
And the efficiencies with the back office is super important too. Like how much information do they need to move? How much information do they need to validate? These are all steps that with the proper systems, to your point, with the proper ERP, In their world, it's mainly like the telematics and the dispatch software do a lot of the ERP components for the standard carrier. The better integrated they are, the more efficient, like the less I will need people to move the information. Think of a dispatcher sitting at his desk today. If this dispatcher is just keying information in the system, he's not doing dispatch. The goal for my dispatcher is to be aware of, hey, I'm going to be late there. I need to pick up the phone, call my receiver to tell him I'm going to be 15 minutes late, so he changed my appointment time. So my driver doesn't wait and we get going quickly again. And I don't get penalized to be late. That's dispatching, right? That's making sure that I'm on top of information. If I'm just keying information to a system, that alert is going to go on without me noticing it. My driver is going to be there late. We're going to get penalized and ticked for this. And the driver is going to stay there for longer because he wasn't there on time.
So getting back to the problem you're solving, and again, you're trying to improve the life of the truck driver, try to improve that experience that he has so he stays in this business.
Yeah.
Do you consider Isaac, is it an ELD? Do you call it telematics?
We say we're an in-cab solution. For the ELD is really one component of the entire solution that we provide.
But so somebody said yesterday, ELD is like calling your phone a talking device.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, my phone does so much more than that.
Exactly.
But my great-grandchildren will probably still call it a phone,
yeah,
even though that's one of dozens of functions that it performs. So we call this ELD, electronic logging device, but it's grown into something so much more.
It's the core function that makes it mandatory in every trucks, right? We are an ELD, like the ELD is one of the components of our solution. And it's a reason why people have to have us in their truck or somebody else. Now, since I need some screen and some device and some equipment in the truck, why don't I use it for more, right? That's where it starts expanding to what else can we solve with this device in the truck. Yeah. That's how it grew to where it is today, right? And the ELD is not just a component. And funny enough, when you look at the Isaac solution, the driver, I want to know he's been stopped there for an hour and a half. I want to understand why he was stopped there for an hour and a half. And I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to have to call him for this. So the hour and a half was what? Like, okay, he waited for 15 minutes. He picked up the trailer for 15 minutes. He did the inspection. There was a little problem with it, so he waited for 30 minutes. I want to know those steps. So what we did is we are an activity-based system. So the driver never tells me I'm on duty. He tells me I'm waiting. I'm looking at the trailer. I'm inspecting the trailer. I'm ready to go.
Are those just clicks or are they?
Just clicks. So he documents the activities and we set the logbook in the back. We know that waiting is on duty. We know that looking at trailer is on duty. We know that a brake's a brake and it's up to. So at the end of the day, we're asking the driver the dumb questions. Sorry, I don't want to say not dumb, but the simple questions of
That's where I'm always coming from, because again, a lot of times the technology discussion, I said to Brittany yesterday that every conversation I have with the technologist begins 4 sentences in where you're like, what are we talking about? What problem are you solving?
Yeah.
You're talking, I get it, your brain's moving a mile a minute, but I'm still asking what problem are we solving? Yeah. And so I like that you're starting with the very basic questions, because let's face it, most drivers are saying, I don't care about your tech. I just want my life to be better.
So today, a driver that we onboard in a company that starts fresh, has never driven a truck, he's new to the business. He comes to Isaac, to an Isaac equipped truck, and we're asking him what he does. Are you waiting? Are you hooking? Are you dropping the trailer? Whatnot. That document is a logbook. The driver doesn't touch a logbook today. The ELD is there, and it's mandatory, but today it's in the background. The driver doesn't see it.
Right.
We give him his clocks. He knows how much more time he can drive, but he's never set a line on duty or off duty or in the sleeper or not, or driving. We took care of this, just asking him, like a punch clock, tell me what you're doing. So it helps the business document all the trip sheets drivers used to do, to report like accessorials and everything that they did, what time I've arrived and whatnot. All this is gone because we document step by step everything the driver did. So think of optimization on the back end, how much paper I need to move to process payroll.
Right.
How much paper I need to move to process invoicing. So by doing all this, not only have we simplified the driver's life, but we've created tons of efficiencies in the back end.
I like it. I like it. I want to step back for just a moment. We've always had hours of service. A driver can't drive 24 hours a day.
Yep.
For safety's sake, we said you can only drive a certain, I think it's 11 hours. And it's probably something similar in Canada. You have somewhere
13
else.
hours. It's 2 hours a month.
Okay.
Very similar.
We expect them to take breaks. And so they always would log in a paper book. Some companies used electronic logging devices.
Yeah.
And what's 5 years ago, 2019, they said everybody with the big rig has to have an ELD. And there was hundreds of ELDs. And the whole industry was pretty upset about it. Some people already had it and saw the value in it prior to the law. I don't know. Did you have a similar law in Canada?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Canada and US really moved at the same pace.
So the whole industry was pushing back and going, I don't want this. And I think because they thought we're going to lose flexibility, which they did. Drivers lost flexibility that they might have had with the paper copy because they could fudge a little bit. But the good part is we've had a visibility revolution in this business because all of these companies, the ELD, the telematics that you are creating, you could plug in visibility solutions. Talk about that, because on my podcast a few years ago, when all the visibility solutions came out, all of the brokers, I think 50 people in a row said, Joe, I want to talk to you about visibility. And everyone thought they invented it. And it occurred to me when I got to this event the day before yesterday that it was like Santa Claus delivered it. No one knew where it came from. You guys here, everyone at Trimble knew where it came from. But the rest of the industry was just like, it just showed up one day and it's beautiful. I love it. Bring me more. So talk about that. I'll call it, I think it's fair to call it the visibility revolution and how it started with the ELDs. Am I wrong to say that?
Yeah, so I don't know how related it is to the ELD or not, or the market demanded. Today, like you receive something from out, you get the picture, you get a notification the second it's en route, you get a notification when it's at your destination, you get a picture of it on your porch. That's the kind of experience that people expect. And you made the parallel between earlier what we live in our day-to-day life and what we expect in our business. And we expect it across the board today. So that visibility component is something that shippers and people, like, they wanted to see where their freight is. And I want to be able to manage this. So, of course, we're a big component of that because we're the device that reports truck position. We're the device that confirms to the dispatch, I'm working on that trip right now. That means I'm hauling that load and that order number. So the order number status comes from the device, our device in the truck, which in case is the ELD, right? So we take that information over to the dispatch and then to the visibility platforms such as MacroPoints, ForeKites, whatever. They're Project 44, whatever they're using. But for the shipper to be able to have that visibility of, here's my pallet, here's my trailer, here's my load, so they can have visibility on this. One thing you mentioned about the ELD, the ELD has not changed the hours of service regulation. The hours of service regulation was there. The ELD is just enforcing.
No fudging.
No fudging, exactly. When you think about I can work 70 hours a week, 13 hours a day, 11 hours a day in this day, 14 hours. I can drive for 11 hours within a 14 hours day. That's a lot of work. I think with the hours of service, the problem with the hours of service regulation is not the amount of hours, it's the flexibility and when you can do these hours. A lot of drivers will tell you, I can't sleep for 10 hours. Why should I stop for 10 hours?
It's interesting because people have been on my podcast said drivers can drive 11 hours. They drive 6. So that's the average. So when somebody says we have a driver shortage, no, we just utilize them.
We don't use the drivers to maximum capacity.
I use the same tired analogy, but I love it, so I'll say it again. If you and I ran a surgery center and we had all these surgeons working for us, we would say they make $500,000 a year. We are going to keep them busy. No meetings, no paperwork, no nothing.
You got it.
And because we would say they make $500,000 a year. Don't talk to them. They got to get to surgery. Drivers, we don't say, no, we don't have to behave the same because they don't make that money. But the only time that truck is worth anything is when it's driving. And it can't drive without a driver. Maybe someday. So we have to rethink how we're dealing with the expensive trucks that we have. And God, if we get to the electric vehicles, which are twice as expensive, we're going to have to rethink this. And by the way, if I ran a machine shop with you, JS, we would say the same thing. Those machines have to run 24/7. And the only time they're not running is when we're doing maintenance on them.
And you want to do all this, like the difference between the machine shop and the truck driver. So the truck driver is moving a truck. That could be the source of the next nuclear verdict, right? Or the source of a big accident. So there's a safety component with other third parties that we're trying to manage. So it's fine that we have hours of service regulation. We just have to be realistic about the concept of when you think of a driver that's parked on the side of the road because he was out of hours, needs to stay there for 10 hours, no shower, no place to eat, nothing. All good. He's probably more tired. And if you have given him 2 windows of 5 hours.
I live in Detroit. You live in Montreal. If I was to drive up there, it's 8 hours.
Yeah.
If I jumped in my car after work and I said I'm going to get there late at night,
yeah,
I would judge if I was tired or not. And now my car tells me if I'm tired. It says pull over, but a lot of times I'm not tired when it says pull over. I'm like, am I tired? Does the car know more than me? But I have the flexibility. If I say, I'm tired, I'm going to stop in Toronto halfway. I have that flexibility. I'm a responsible adult. Yeah. In a lot of ways, we're taking that away from the driver. And you might say, I feel like $1 million. I've got to pull over. And then you might sleep for a little bit of time. And if I had to sleep in a truck, I'm going to wake up a lot. Yeah. And I might wake up and go, I'm tired. Yeah. But my hours say I can drive again.
And that's another problem because now we're forcing tired drivers to drive.
Yeah.
Right? Because to your point, hey, if I don't drive now, my window is going to be ending soon. So I better be driving rather than stopping and taking a rest.
Right.
Because I'm not going to make it to destination.
I don't believe the government will come up with a solution. We in industry have to. And again, if we want to keep attracting good talent to this industry, and I think a lot of it's going to come to the drop and hook and to, hey, I'm driving to Los Angeles. I'm going to drive an hour out. I'm going to drop my trailer in a yard. And I'm going to turn around and come back to New York. And so I can predict my day. When I talk to drivers on my podcast, they say things like, I plan my day and then something happens and I replan my day and I replan it again and again. They go, when you're a driver, you replan your day all day long. It's like, interesting. Yeah. I guess we all do that a little bit, but they're driving. It's different. And they hit a traffic jam that they weren't going to otherwise hit. When you don't get them unloaded on a timely basis, they miss their next load. They don't get home in time for the kids.
They're trying each individual is trying to maximize that day because go back to his problem. He's working to make a living. He makes a living when the wheels are turning, when the miles are accumulating, right? So for himself too, like he's trying to maximize that time that he's away from home. Like those hours must count as miles that he puts on the clock.
By the way, we got to wrap this bad boy up, but I want to ask one last question about this. Is not so long ago, a consulting company called me and said, "Hey, Joe, there's a big company. Everyone would recognize the name." And I said, "Yeah, what's their problem?" They go, "They deliver to a big box store, and they work with blank. Big trucking company would all recognize." And they say they lost millions of dollars in invoicing because they don't get the proof of delivery. Yeah. And I go, wow, these are massive companies. And I was thinking in this day and age, now when I used to be at a little 3PL, we sometimes struggled to get the proof of deliveries on a timely basis. And people outside the industry don't realize that when you don't have a proof of delivery, you don't get paid. So you might have dropped off $1 million worth of something that you're not getting paid for. And I was talking to my brother-in-law, he's a Ford CFO, and he said, no, we would never pay someone unless there was a proof of delivery. I said, what if you could show that the stuff was inside your factory? He goes, that's just the way the world works. So does Isaac and the other tools that the driver is using help with proof of delivery?
100%. So how we help with this is the tablet that's in the truck will allow the driver to capture images. Like we have a scanning feature that will allow the driver to scan the proof of delivery.
Perfect.
So it makes it back to the back office earlier. And what carriers have started doing is they integrate that step in the workflow. So to the point where I was telling you, like, I don't want the driver to forget anything. And that proof of delivery is the sort of my bill process, right? And I don't want to delay my bill process because I want to get paid as quickly as, not only do I want to get paid, but I want to get paid as quickly as possible, right? I don't want to wait 5 days to get that proof of delivery. So it delays my receivable for 5 days, right? So part of the workflow, when the driver completes the delivery, one of the steps is scan your bills. So the driver takes a shot of them, all of them, and then they go up to the server.
Right.
Through the integration with the systems. That's where that falls into the imaging platform. It falls into the dispatch software, and they're ready to kick off the invoicing process and workflow.
So one of the other issues is detention. And by the way, it's a personal frustration of mine that you have 2 hours to unload that guy, and whatever the agreement says. So you say, we got 2 hours of your time to unload. Maybe it's an hour, but after that, you owe us some extra money. And one of the things that when I used to run a 3PL and now when I advise large shippers, I hate when you get a detention charge 3 weeks later, a month later. It could be 6 months later. And I was like, this is bizarre. The idea that you couldn't tell me on Friday when it happened, but you tell me 6 months later when no one has a memory of it. And that is one of the things that gives the whole industry a bad name. And it's so frustrating for the brokers and the shippers.
And the guy that was there on time and waited for 3 hours and never gets paid is 1 hour.
Right. Yep.
And we take a big part into helping with this because on many fronts. But let me start with the base. What's important for the carriers to be able to prove out of any doubt what time you really landed there. And today with geofences and with integration, like Trimble is a partner for this, like with the Copilot software and Trimble maps, they have what they call verified places. So all the locations where we go, like where carriers go pick up and deliver freight, they've mapped out polygons of those zones. We use these today, like people don't need to draw polygons anymore so that we report the time we've broken the geofence. We rely on that information coming from Trimble maps to tell us I've arrived, I've departed. That's the number one step. Having accurate information in terms of arrival and departure. Now that arrival has to match with your appointment. Early or late, it's not good. You need to be there on time. You know that, right? The goal is for us to make sure that we bring the driver there. I was telling you this before we started the recording. When you think of navigation, I'm navigating a driver to an address. The address is the front of the building. The entrance of that location is at the back. The driver made it on front to the front.
It could be a huge facility too.
It's a huge facility. It's a boulevard where you can't just come around and turn right. No, he needs to do a 3-mile detour to come back to the right entrance. You want to avoid that because that's the difference between on time and late. He was on time to the front of the facility, but he's late by 15 minutes to the back.
Yeah, and you could be delivering after hours sometimes too.
And when you're late, you don't get detention time paid because you were late. It's your fault, right? You get detention paid when you're on time. That's where the issue starts. So to make sure the driver gets there on time safely, right? Gets there on time. We report back the information to the TMS. So now they know, okay, with that shipper, the 2-hour window applies. We can bill them so much accessorial after 2 hours for each 15 minutes or hour that we're there, depending on the contract. Boom, I can invoice my customer right away. So that automation process, so they don't get it 3 months later, but they get it right on the spot with the same bill, is possible when the data is of quality and you can prove that you were there on time. That's what we help with.
Yeah, and again, these are always a problem because I always remember when we didn't get the proof of delivery on this little 3PL and my customer would be asking for it. And I would say, hey, guys, give that to me. It delivered last Friday. And they would say something along the lines of, the driver delivered, then he went up to his cottage. He's got it's on his phone maybe. So that was always the weird thing about it. I was like, we got to do better than that. And so I think this integrated solution is so much better. But
that's where integration is so important. Look at all the efficiencies we can solve the back office. And how much did I need the driver to know this? I didn't need the driver to know this.
He doesn't. And this is another thing. If you use Amazon, you don't ever take training for it. No one wants training. No one wants to say, hey, did you take the 2-day Isaac onboarding training? They'll be like, no, I quit. I'm not doing onboarding training. I'll go get a job that doesn't require that.
That's our objective. Our objective is to make sure we provide an interface where the driver has a username and password. He logs into the device. We tell him what to do next. Some of our customers will say, we don't train drivers on Isaac. They just get it because of the concept. I don't need the driver to navigate through 3 menus and learn about 4 apps and 5 passwords. No, it's 1 password. And you're talking about a problem. One of the problems that we see that our carriers are facing today is more and more shippers, to solve all these issues of detention and billing and everything, have built their own app. And now they want each driver to use the app of that shipper. So think of the multiplication of how many apps that we need the driver to use. So the pressure is there to do it. Carriers try to find solution to have things talk to each other in the back office and integrate. But there are situations where there's no workaround. So our goal is to see how can we integrate that up in the workflow. And when I go loading for such a shipper, instead of completing the workflow in Isaac, it launches the other app, it logs the driver in, and just allows them to complete the form in that app to then return to you guys. So just trying to make the experience easier for the driver. Forget about remembering like 10 different passwords, how to use 10 different apps, and don't forget to use that app every time you go there. How can we simplify this? That's what we keep thinking about.
Yep. I want to wrap this bad boy up. So I'm talking to my friend J.S. Bouchard, and we're talking about improving the truck driver experience. And we've talked about that. I don't want to try and summarize. I don't know that I could. I want you to put a big old bow on this. Talk one more time about Trimble and one more time about what you guys do over at Isaac and that the importance of that partnership.
Yeah. So Trimble is a very important partner for Isaac. We do, like we discussed, several integrations with their core products. We do take all the navigation comes from Trimble Map in the Isaac solution. And our goal is really to make sure the driver gets an easy experience in the truck. You took that job to drive a truck, move freight from point A to point B. The tablet is a problem for him. We're trying to make it his friend. And it's going to be his friend if it's helpful, if it helps him, if it guides him through his day, and doesn't become something like cumbersome that he needs to manage and tediously click on all the time.
And he doesn't need another nuisance in his life.
You got it.
So what I'll do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile.
Thank you so much.
A link to your website and any other links Neil gives me, I'll put in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy.
Joe, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. Anytime you want to chat about industry problems that we can help solve, always happy to help.
Thank you so much. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.